All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Product Misfires. My name is Pierre-Etienne Bousquet, and today on the episode, it was a great conversation. I got Benoit and Jesse from Rely On. It's a company that stems from the famous Diagram Ventures. So we're touching a little bit during the conversation on their experience working through, a venture studio like Diagram. So that's really, really interesting. And then we're talking about the problem they're trying to solve in the EV world. It's a crazy world, fascinating conversation. We're talking about product, how the customer experience will evolve around EV, and how they're trying to better this experience all around. So have a great listen, and we'll catch you on the next one. Awesome. Jesse, Benoit, welcome to Product Misfire.
Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for having us.
You are very welcome. It's a joy to have you today. First off, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. So, Benoit, do you want to start?
Benoit Lacroix, co-founder, CEO at Rely On.
All right.
And I'm Jesse White, co-founder and CTO at Rely.
All right, guys. We met in the early days of Rely On, right? So you guys went through, and that's actually something that I was really looking for. We had Diagram Ventures come into the studio and talk to us about their model and how they operate. And it was really a fascinating story on understanding that model. Rely On stems from Diagram Ventures. First off, I just want to land there, right? It's where we started to have a conversation, being connected through Diagram. I want to know that whole journey. How did it start for you guys? From being on the outside, seeing a job opening, saying, CTO co-founder, CEO co-founder, and you applied on it. Like, just bring us back to that journey. How did it work working with Diagram? Because it's kind of a unique type of situation.
It is. It's awesome, actually.
Yeah. Did it start with you, Benoit?
Okay.
Were you the first one to join Rely On, or was it at
So we're gonna have both our paths there, and we converged. And then
mine is complicated.
ran from there. So do you want to start with, or I can start with mine, and we can go.
Yeah, mine is complicated.
All right, so let's
I'll
start
make it short after.
Okay,
the easy guy.
So basically, I had just been kind of scaling down from the last venture. I was taking the summer off. I was looking for kind of the next thing. Wasn't really too sure what. I knew I wanted to start something, but I didn't quite have that idea, or really have that conviction. Okay, this is what I want to build here next. But I knew I wanted the entrepreneurial at heart. I knew I wanted to start another venture, but not too sure what. Right, so there I am browsing LinkedIn, and I see co-founder CTO role for a new startup. Diagram Ventures, I never really heard of them at that point, right? And seeing, oh, hey, it's monitoring related. It's looking, helping monitor, understand the health of chargers, and improve the reliability of that infrastructure.
And you're on LinkedIn, so I mean, there's probably just one position like that, seeing a co-founder role.
Exactly,
and it's not sort of a
usual,
cheap role. It's a legit company backed by a legit VC.
And you start looking into, okay, wait, this is legit. And then, okay, so like, how do I apply for a co-founder role, right? But the second I saw the role, I was like, wait, this is me here. Like, I knew it the second I saw the job post, because it built perfectly off my previous expertise, which was building network monitoring systems and in telecom. So, monitoring and understanding the health of assets and helping get them up and working with them is, at my core. So I was like, this is me. How does this work? So I, wrote a cover letter, kind of building on the experience I had there before, submitted my resume, and just, submitted it. Hey, let's give this a shot and see what happens. And then I think it was a week or two later, I actually heard back from them, right? And, had that initial kind of call. And I think I remember talking to, Emily that was on it. She's like, she saw my application. She's like, oh, this profile here, we gotta keep an eye on that one. So
she spotted it.
So she spotted it and then kind of kept the conversation going. But how the process works is, they typically hire the CEO first, right? And then they, based on the venture they're looking for to build, they'll, do some recruiting or searching for the other key hires that you need to kickstart the team. So let's say like a VP battery technology, right? So these special skills, they'll go to, and then they'll provide the CEO with a short list of candidates for each of those roles, right? So really the other hires
hand-holding
aren't placed until the CEO is placed. So for me, the process took some time.
I was like,
where's is this real? Where's this going? Do I wait? Like,
so you were shortlisted?
But
until the CEO was in place.
Exactly.
And I was taking my sweet time.
They won't really make the call. And then they're not just looking for but also a good fit between individuals as well.
Sure.
So
I mean, it's a marriage, right? At the end of the day,
arranged marriage.
So let me
on that later.
Maybe I'll pause there and then that. So I'm in this talking to them and kind of this whole pattern.
And then it's like pause.
And then wait and see where this goes. But luckily, I was at a point where I'd already decided to take this out. I'm enjoying my time off here.
So you were you were in perfect timing type of situation. Did they keep you in the loop? Did they like sort of say, okay, we're in final round?
So we're waiting. Hey, we're still looking at
to keep you.
So there was good dialogue all throughout, every couple week touch point. But really, there's nothing happens until they land that seat.
And through that process, is it clear by then how the whole structure works for you? So do you know exactly, the equity you're going to have as a co-founder? Do you know the salary? Do you know or is it just a big blur at that point still? Like, what the hell is going to happen?
It's still a big blur because all that doesn't really settle until, again, the CEO's there. So it's still a bit nebulous there for a little bit. And, if the CEO decides to take his time, right? And then it can take a little longer, right? It can happen.
All right, so now let's
meanwhile,
switch.
So this is summer 2023. At that point, I've been 18 years into the EV mobility space. I had my first startup for 16 years anyway, so I'm kind of active in the space. I happened to be on a panel with Amélie from Diagram a few months before, like in the spring of 2023. So she reaches out. She says, I want to share an idea, a project with you. So, and we speak, and the day we speak, I actually just finished my previous experience, my previous job, basically. So she says, well, you become a CEO candidate. I said, I don't know. She said, maybe. And then we talk, and then she tells me about this Reliant project, and it's like everything is analogous to what I've done my whole career. Like, from ideology to deployment, supporting Reliant was really analogous to my previous experience.
And what was the role you had in your previous experience?
Co-founder for
okay,
and VP sales and CX in general, and then CEO as a telematic company for a couple of years. And the day I actually finished that mission, I had my conversation with Diagram.
Unbelievable.
So it was initially to get my 2 cents, because this is what they do, right? Also, they reach out to people to test the idea, like they did, you also. And I become a CEO candidate. But I just finished the role. It was beginning of summer. I had blisters on my feet. Just wanted to take a little bit of a time. It was too fast, right? And anyway, long story short, I thought about it all summer, and then I was like, okay, so I can start a business. That's the sweet time. But, I needed that break. But at the end of the day, it was like, I have a chance to start another business. I'm 43 at that point, kind of like concierge mode a little bit. There's a lot of unknown. We earn our co-founder titles, but still, like, you get a bit of a head start with this, well-known investment and venture studio firm in Montreal. It's my ecosystem, it's my world, it's my expertise. I would be a fool not to jump in. So fast forward, when September came, I reached back and I said, I'm really interested. And then we did the whole process, but that's why this poor guy was just put on hold for some time until we kind of reached the same level, and then we could go forward and jump in.
Jesse had his chickens. It was okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did it have chickens?
That's the summer I built my chicken coop.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you go. And I mean, the image of Diagram is that, and you touched just on it a little bit, but is that they give you more or less the keys to a car that's, already going forward, that's moving, that's already built, in terms of like, the idea is validated, it's de-risk, you have maybe even first clients. And I'm talking about a concept from the outside, right? The perception that we have of companies stemming from Diagram is that they are, really a vehicle that's already in a good position, in a good shape, and then you put drivers in the car, and then it's like, go now, push it, right? So bring us back to reality. What is it really when you get the keys to that?
But there's three fundamentals I think they're doing great, and compared to other studios that I've seen, that sometimes they will want to, they will target a professor at the university with a tech. They will try to match them with a CEO, and that's not the Diagram's model. And they're touching the three fundamentals of a startup: a big problem that matters, and it's kind of feasible. This is where you jump in, right? Like, feasibility is kind of checked at a high level in an industry that is growing, EV charging infrastructure in our sense. And then they try to find the right drivers for that car, team up, and it's a good HR firm. Diagram is a good HR firm. So they touch those 3 points. And then, yes, they got early traction with, interest and LOI. It's not commercial. You're asking like the reality. Of course, when you talk with the diagram team about the prospect of having this or that service or this or that product, you're interested as a potential user, potential customer. But the conversation is brought to another level when the founders comes in and they're like, okay, let's talk shop, let's talk deployment, let's talk product, timeline.
Yeah, you get down to the details.
Exactly. So they do a lot of great market research, good initial vetting of the idea and the potential. Again, matching the founders, and then you start with that with funding. That's for me, that's a concierge startup. Yeah.
Yeah, the funding is a cool piece. LOIs are they, were they a big leverage for you guys having those, already sort of canned? Were they really like, hey, we hit the ground running first week. Yes, we do a plan, but we have clients we can start talking to and have all those insights.
They were not canned. They were there. Like, right, there was genuine interest from partners to bring it to the next level. But we had to jump in. Actually, some were saying, let's wait till we see the founders so we can see with whom we're going to deal with, right? But definitely we had I like to say that from the get-go, we knew what to start working on. We already had some, folks to speak and ask questions and vet our new ideas. And it really, really kicked off.
Because that's where we were interacting with you guys, right? When we support, I'm guessing it's, first couple of weeks in, we have people we want to go talk to, but they want to sort of see the vision.
Yeah.
Without support, that became a bit more of a problem. How much of a pivot did you do from, day one to today rely on?
Not much. At all. Yeah,
So it's
spot on.
It's spot on, problem, solution type of approach. And
the problem is exactly the same. The slight adjustment that we did is we were planning on having managed service on top of our product initially, and now we're very much down SaaS is really our primary offering with a bit of managed service. So that's the small adjustment. I wouldn't call this a pivot. No, really, that was right on. Yeah,
that's impressive. And maybe let's do a deep dive here. What is Rely On, right? What was the problem you guys were really trying to solve, or that was identified, and what is the solution that you're providing?
Yeah, I can give it a go, and then Ben could add on to it. So I think really the main problem they're trying to solve is the reliability of EV charging infrastructure. So a lot of these chargers have been deployed, installed, but feedback from the field and drivers is that it doesn't always work, right? There's a lot of failed attempts. People go to try to charge. It's difficult to get going, right? So that's been a pervasive problem in the industry there for some time, and different reasons there for that. But then they realize, well, hey, wait, who's going to manage all this infrastructure after? How do we even know that there are problems there, and how do we solve them efficiently and at scale when you have thousands of these assets spread across a big geographical area?
What's the landscape like? Is it 1,000, 10,000? What's the number of chargers?
Yeah, hundreds of thousands. Yeah, they're today across North America. And then Europe is even more advanced. Some countries are much further in their electrification journey, right? But in North America, I think for
excluding home chargers, that's just public chargers.
Public chargers. So we have say 150, K public charging stations in North America, and then
more than that. Yeah.
And what's the big number in terms of downtime or uptime?
So there's different, I guess, metrics. So one thing uptime, is it up or not?
What's
right?
Uptime?
So what is being up, I think is one question. Yeah. But I think folks, it's an easy thing to grasp uptime, but then people realize quickly that's not really the right metric there for drivers. It's it can be up, but if the cable's cut or my payment won't authorize, it doesn't matter. I can't charge. So the industry has moved to looking at these other metrics called charge attempt rate, or SCAR, successful charge attempt rate, or charge success rate, CSR.
Interesting, yeah.
To look at what's the percentage of times where people try to charge and actually are able to charge successfully. There's another metric. It's something about first successful, how many times can they charge on the actual first attempt or not.
Yeah.
So that's different than uptime, right? But there's these, again, the industry is still coalescing around what the right metrics are to look at, but it's a known problem. Yeah.
But what's the flashy number saying? What's the dramatic number that we can look at today saying, hey, this is a big problem?
Our vanilla nominal pitch was 1 out of 5 at all time is not working, but it's even worse than that in some geographies, some applications. So you can think uptime 70, 75%. When you pass 80, it's nice. Yeah. So imagine you're driving your fuel car today with like, this little light blinking. You head to a pump station, it turns out to be empty. It's not a concept that we know with, legacy cars, but it's a concept that EV drivers know, unfortunately.
And it's a big problem. I mean, when you go to charge, you need to charge. It's like, it's not always optional. Sometimes it may be like, hey, okay, this was a nice to have, but usually I need to charge here because I need to keep going to my destination. It's a massive issue. And I'm also curious to understand, like, is this a problem that stems from the scaling of the charger? Like, was the mandate to have as many as possible? Looking at Electrify America, for example, the number of charging stations is massive in quantity. Yeah. Again, the success rate of transaction is mind-boggling for me. Just from experience, probably 1 out of 2 was down when I went through a road trip in the US, for example.
That must have been painful experience, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And actually, that's what got me in this project, because there's always going to be operation and maintenance. Even more mature technology, more mature ecosystem, stuff break, right?
Yeah.
But today it's still like it's a adolescent ecosystem with technology that is not always 100% mature, systems, processes that are not always mature. Built or deployed by companies or systems are not 100% mature. They're not always ecosystems that are made for companies to collaborate on solving those issues. Documentation is not always available. So information is not always available. So you add all of those things and thinking that there's sophisticated machine with power delivery, cooling, networking, payment authorization. There's so many, and the app, so many, and then 18 inches behind the screen. So many things can go wrong. That's why we're at 70-80% in general.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
a lot of moving parts. What was the biggest problem that you faced trying to build Rely On? And there's, because you touched on many things, right? It's all the components, a lot of different probably vendors, but there's also trying to have. And I don't know if it was the folks from Diagram that mentioned this, but like uptime as a service type of business model. And I don't know if you still use that term at all, but it you can see it, right? You understand it clearly talking about uptime as a service. What is the biggest issue? Is it the experience also that, you were talking about, trying to do a payment, trying to, try it for the first time per circuit? Is a different experience as well. There's geographic component that you have to also probably take into account, having support in, Quebec, Trois-Rivières, whatever it is, the US, everywhere. Like, it's a big problem to solve. It's not easy. What was the biggest challenge for you guys?
I can take a go to start. And then I think for me, it was like, I guess just showing up, right? And then being like, oh, hey, we can help you solve this problem. But then people are like, who are you? So I think it's really like,
I like where you're going.
I think it's building that initial like trust, like who are you? Like I've been operating these charging stations for a couple of years now. Who are you showing up to tell me that I can operate my charging stations better, right? Like I think so. It really is, getting that early trust and traction with those, first year I think was really like key, and as like I think challenging in some cases, right, to really like prove yourself from the get-go. And then meanwhile you're building up the product, getting those first early wins in there, right? So I think that was really just trying to show up and start from the ground up and prove yourself. And I think the biggest thing was focus on some small wins, get going, start solving some real problems, and then piggyback from there. And it wasn't long before we'd start solving problems for one customer, and then realize, oh wait, this other customer has that same problem there, and then it kind of picks up on itself there as well.
Yeah, the snowball effect there.
Yeah.
I like where you brought this, and the biggest problem is the size of it, the complexity of it. Operation and maintenance is complex. There's so many technology stakeholders involved, and we were like, where do we start, right?
Different expertise, it
could be a monster of a product, and still today we're trying to bring it as simple as possible, but there's so many things, there's so many tentacles in operation and maintenance. And to Jesse's point, like, we, at the beginning, naive pitch is like uptime, blah, blah. And then we're like, wait a minute, it's operational people. They won't believe our absolute claim, right? They won't believe that. Nobody believes that you can bring like 99.9% or 4-hour SLAs or all of those things. 4-hour SLAs, I mean, having a technician ready to fix the station.
Mm-hmm.
So we very early, like said, we're going to help them. We're going to help them operationally solving, one problem at a time. That's really how we see things. And, the pitch really fast changed to, we're not going to solve it in 4 hours, but let's say instead of taking 4 weeks, if we could save it in 4 days and not lose your mind and having the information and kind of have more workflows and information available. So that really like kind of sobered out a little bit how we bring stuff. And I think that's the right pitch to have to with operational people, because they know it's so complicated. They don't expect you to solve all those problems, but one by one day at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you, because that's a problem that we see in any, probably, I would say tech, but it's probably applicable to any sort of new company or new ideas, is how do you stay focused on solving a small piece of the problem?
Yeah.
Because you talk to a customer and probably you're exposed to big customers, right? Sometimes also you have that meeting and they're like, no. Like, it's cute what you did there, but this is our problem. If you solve this, then we're going to be talking seriously. How are you able to keep track of, going to those crazy meetings? And I'm sure you have stories of just like you sit down and, a powerhouse says, that's nice, but if you had that feature, I would buy it. Yeah. And how do you like keep it together saying, no, not yet. It's in our roadmap. We're going to focus on what we've done and our actual roadmap that we believe in. Do you have some, does that relate?
Lucky in the timing.
Does that relate?
I'll let you go, but I think we've been pretty lucky in the timing of those calls. Yeah.
That's definitely happened, right? You hear like, hey, if you had X, we'd buy it today, but then we don't have it. We know that, that's not going to come for a while. I think what's helped us, is really being, again, focused on solving the problem end to end, what we call a steel thread. So building a really solid foundation that goes from helping detect the problem all the way through solving it, right? So not needing to go like, I think necessarily like really deep or wide on each of the aspects throughout that. But initially it was really end to end, solve that, do it in a solid way where you establish, the process, all the different pieces and build that right. And then over time, what we do is expand on each of those. We'd go deeper in, discovering the problem, deeper in helping diagnose it, deeper in, helping dispatch, deeper in analytics and reporting, on each of those. But initially it was very focused on staying on that steel thread, as we call it, and that would build the foundation for all the other pieces that we can look at.
Because that was a differentiator from the get-go, the steel thread, the end-to-end. Nobody was still offering this. So that's why we made a point to cover that. And then, of course, we would be missing some features in some of those, world of big functionalities of the platform. But then we could buy time, if you allow me this expression, because we offered the steel thread, right?
Gotcha.
But when we started, we mapped all the possible things we could do for O&M. There were so many. And when I said lucky a bit earlier, like very often, more often than not, those big chunks that we're missing, that some larger, more sophisticated customer brought, we had this call 2-3 times. And we knew we would have to build it anyway. So it's like, kind of aligns. It makes sense. Let's prioritize that, right? Because we have either customer or prospect that want it. Better prioritize this and get some traction.
I think another thing that helped is, I guess, being able to move fast as well, right? And deliver product quickly, and having an awesome team and the right processes that can, turn out those features in weeks time, not months times, right? That's crazy, and be able to get there. So if you have that well ironed out and you can ship quickly, then you can address those fairly quickly as well, right? And even though the prospect may be asking for that, right? Maybe they'll typically accept, a bit less.
Criteria?
Once you start scratching a bit, you say, oh, actually, that may be sufficient for now, knowing that we'll get there later, right? So I think it's.
So you're saying basically that through those meetings, you would actually listen to what they were looking for, you would break it down, and you would actually put it out there. Build it, ship it, and go get that new customer.
And then the next call saying, oh yeah, we have that now, right? Yeah.
But super candid and open with them. This is what we can do now. Is that okay? Like, can we move to the next stage with that? Yeah, sure. So that's what we would be building. That allowed us to be also more efficient and quick. to bring up new functionalities. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really interesting. And can you walk me through maybe, what would be a typical, problem and how Relion solves it? I'd just like to have that image of like, what is it? A customer shows up at a charging station, it doesn't work, or, there's a problem. Relion steps in where and how does it step in? What's that, that steel thread that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think
maybe you just walk us through the product.
Probably a good one is like a power module failure. I think look at that, right? So there's different types of problems. Some that can prevent the station from working outright, or some of them that will make it work in like a suboptimal way. So one thing that's pretty common with these like DC fast chargers that can, charge your vehicle in, 20, 30 minutes, is they all have these power modules, the pieces that are responsible, converting the AC to DC power that goes into the vehicle, right? So there's typically like a stack of those, several of those, and each of them is responsible for, doing some portion of the energy that goes to the vehicle, right? So those, there's cooling involved, a lot of electronics, and those can tend to fail and will need, replacement after some amount of time, right? But not all the different charger manufacturers actually like report those failures openly through the protocol and say this has failed. Some, they fail silently in some cases. So, for example, you can have a charger that appears to be healthy, but it's not outputting the amount of power it should be or that it's advertising. So now your driver gets to go there, plugs in, right? It sees, 75 kilowatts on the charger, but then, oh, hey, he's only pulling in 25, right, at the connector. So now that charge that is expecting me to take, half an hour now is taking, an hour plus, right? Let's say. So that's a good case. So suboptimal experience for the user, not getting what they expected, silent failure that happened, not really visible. So what we do, where Relion comes in, is we help monitor for problems like this. So we'll analyze the data and help surface these problems that may have been hard to detect otherwise. And then we'll say, okay, well, hey, the pattern shifted here. That we've seen this unit's able to do 75 kilowatts, but over the last few sessions, it's only done 25. All right, bring that up to an operator. Hey, there's a degraded station here. Here's the likely cause. Right. And here's what here's what we'd recommend to do there for this manufacturer. So our tool will help bring that attention up to the operators so they can look at that. Now, okay, great. We now know that there's a problem. So even that is a big step there in the industry, knowing that there's an issue.
Do you have a hardware component?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we're able to do this all remotely and basically take the main protocol that the chargers use to communicate with the outside world is OCPP. So we're able to capture that feed there one way or another, analyze it, and that's where the bulk of our analysis and intelligence comes in. So we capture that feed, analyze it, and say, okay, hey, something's suboptimal here. Again, ticket pops up. So, and that, that is still like, I guess, somewhat novel in the industry, and doing that right. Some folks, claim they do it as well, very basic. I think we can be proud that we do it, really, really
because
well.
We bother. Your words earlier this week, nobody bothered to do it. We did. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And then we really look at, all the stations have different variants as well. But anyhow, we end up finding the problem. That's the beginning.
Step one,
identify it.
Okay. So
now what? The famous question.
Now what? Okay, not all these problems can be solved remotely, right? Or you can't just throw AI at saying, fix this power module, right? Like that won't happen. You need boots on the ground. You need, inventory. You need someone that's skilled there, a technician to go ahead and swap it, right? So that's another issue in the industry is all these different tools and how you go about doing the dispatch it's all different platforms, right? So now what we allow is where within that issue, you can create what we call a work order, which is a dispatch there to actually get somebody on site and go ahead and fix it. And then your service provider can already be linked in your account. So then you can send them a work order and say, oh, hey, go ahead and I need you to go replace the power module at this site. We have one in inventory already over here, right? And you can do that right on the issue, send it to your service provider. And then they'll get a notification and be able to go ahead and act on it. Okay, yeah, I'll be there on Wednesday, right? And then plan the visit accordingly. And then go ahead and, perform the work, record it in a tool. And now, the station is up and working optimally, right? So really where we help facilitate is detecting the problem and facilitating the resolution, getting the right information, and helping track all that in the same platform.
So service providers are your contracts, or are those, or is it case by case, or how does that work? Are you responsible for that?
Yeah, so, sorry, we talked about, adjustment, not pivot adjustment at the beginning. So we thought we would bring like managed service with our network of service providers.
Yes.
And very quickly we saw that all the CPOs, charge point operators, any operators of infrastructure of any sort, it can be fleet, it can be public, it can be utilities, they already have those business relationships with those service providers. They actually come and fix them. It's just not efficient. Everything that Jesse just described is tedious. They either don't have the information, and then once they know that the charger is down, super hard to find a problem. I'm not going to repeat everything that he said, but it's really tedious. And today, the incumbent solution is leveraging software that are made for more like user experience to kind of detect issues and troubleshoot. Then you're going to use like whatever Zendesk ticketing system that you have to manage the issue, all kind of communication, means to communicate with the manufacturer, the service provider,
emails, whatever.
Send a work order by email or by PDF, and everything is scattered, right? So what we bring is this continuity in the whole process under one roof, with just Jesse shared. But those service providers already have business relationships, so we found out we would just be the middle guy for transactions, no value added. Whereas if the same operator use Reliant, configure all those service providers that would eventually be called to service in the platform, so they receive notification, call, and tasks directly from the platform. So there's a business continuity even outside of the business with external stakeholder. So that's a huge value prop that we bring, actually.
That's really interesting. And then it's solved, and then you're talking about payments. Do you manage that aspect as well? Who gets
the lines in the sand, right?
Who pays who in this ecosystem?
So I guess payment here, you could think, so we're not in the business of doing payments between the drivers and the operators. We let the existing solutions do that.
But the maintenance,
the maintenance side as well, that we don't handle the invoicing there between them yet.
They have agreements.
We let them arrange that with their existing agreements. But we have in our platform, you can pick the rate. So normally there's pre-agreed upon rates with these service providers. So say, different rates if I need you, tomorrow or whenever you're available, right? So when you request a dispatch, you can pick that rate.
So you don't have an SLA in place with
us?
No,
personally,
no, we don't have to. The SLA for intervention, again, is between the service provider and the network. So we don't handle payment. What we facilitate is the preparation and the transaction, somehow equivalent of a PO, by preparing the work order, assigning it to the service provider, approve it. I'm going to pay, so I approve it. So it's kind of a transactional. So they can go ahead and perform the intervention. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And so what's the... because you're looking at the landscape, you're saying that there's hundreds of thousands of public charging stations out there. You're looking at mandates in Canada saying, hey, by 35
started there. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, by 35 we want to be 100% of new cars sold are going to be EVs or zero emission vehicles. I mean, the multiple effect that will need to transpire into the public network, public or private, I'm guessing also, right?
Both,
at
both,
home, apartment buildings and all that will need to be massive, right? It's what, 20x, 30x? I don't know what the number is, but it's going to be massive. And it's already a problem now, right? At the scale we're at. We could probably take Canada as probably a smaller market than the US for sure. Like, how are we going to support this? How do you, what's your vision, and how does that impact your, like, having these big announcements in the public sector saying, hey, 2035 will be this, and then you're like, holy moly, this impacts our business directly. How do you adjust it? How do you see it? How do you plan to scale it? How is that exciting for you guys?
Well,
it's exciting. I'm in your shoes. I would be excited.
To start with, exciting and motivating and just like confirming that we're in the right spot. The infrastructure is going to, increase by tenfold, not by the end of this decade, but, that in the foreseeable future. So definitely a lot of potential, traction. And as you said, as the infrastructure grows, so does the problem, and, even, exponentially. But also, now we're tipping the adoption now is more that mainstream consumers and so it was like very aficionados of EV drivers. They didn't mind, checking their car a few times, and they really wanted to drive an EV car. Now we're going to switch to, moms and pops and my moms, and it needs to work well. So the expectations of the quality of the user experience will rise even higher. And now also transferring to fleet and commercial drivers. These, we were talking, if you want to go charge, you need to charge, but bus drivers, delivery drivers, they really, really, really need to have those vehicles ready. So the pressure on the infrastructure is going to increase by a lot. So that's an opportunity and pressure on us to deliver on, our humble part. But we're in a good spot.
I think it's going to take time as well to build out, because there's so much you can't just put charge in the ground. They need utility and infrastructure there as well.
Yeah, there's some friction point, and
that's a good point.
The infrastructure has to and be able to support it as well when increasing demands are coming through, and then additional data centers wanting to pull additional power too, right? And
that's
then
a good point.
all these chargers.
That's a good point. How in your perspective, how will the grid support this? Is it just build more hydro and even how does that touch your product in a way where is it just intelligence, is it just being smarter with how we charge and how we do it, is it going to be efficiency? You talked about AI, Jesse, how does that actually come into play into your product? Anyways, a lot of questions there, but let's start with the grid. How do you see us being able to support this transition?
I don't think there's one expert that can answer that, and I certainly don't claim having this expertise. What are going to be the macro friction point for a big deployment? Of course, utility capacity is a huge component, but also we've heard crazy anecdotes then you need city permits to open roads, to open sidewalks. There's a lot. It's not just a extension cable. You actually have all those big cables to bring. So there's a lot of civil engineering also involved. So yes, at some point, maybe the charging infrastructure will be the expansion will be slowed down, putting even more pressure on the existing infrastructure, and having again raising the expectation on availability. So that's for sure. It's kind of everyone's crystal ball on that point, to be honest. It's and how it can go any ways.
And touching on AI, the hot topic, how do you plan on using it to maybe solve that growth problem, or even just how can we use it to?
AI is awesome, and we're already seeing it. They're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it change the way we work. I think there's a couple different ways we're using it. I think internally a lot as part of development. Of course, we're seeing all these different tools from able to write code faster, to review it, to build specs. So I think it's definitely changing the way we work and allowing us to be more efficient with the team, and we encourage experimenting with it and playing around, and it's amazing. It's still what you can do and accomplish. But now incorporating it into the product, I think there's different ways we plan on going about it. One is helping detect more problems, right? Being smarter by looking at the data and correlation, and also another way is helping diagnose, right? And saying, oh, this happened here, similar problem happened over there. Or go ahead and look at this. Another way is helping facilitate the dispatch there as well, and being more intelligent around that. So there's a lot of facets where we can actually plug in AI into the process, right? And see the improvements that go around it. Right now we're leveraging in some parts of the product, but not being really forward, saying, hey, the AI here, but because we're really focused on more solving the core problem and really getting it end to end, rather than pushing, AI, right? It's at the end of the day, it's, people that are operators there behind the screens of this, they want to understand what's going on, boots on the ground matter. So there's no, magic wand that'll fix this, the reliability issues, but there's different touch points where we can leverage it to be able to help in the process. So I think right now for us, it's using it internally to be, better and faster, and build more value quickly, and then we'll be incorporating in different facets of the products throughout the different phases. So detection, diagnosing, and then dispatch as well.
To me, operational people, they cannot take too many false positive or false alarm and false instructions. So the last thing you want to lose is confidence in what you're bringing. So whatever we made a point, we do and we will keep bringing cool stuff, but we got to be careful and quality control in what we bring. Any alarms, insights, because you have just a few cartridges before operational people start losing confidence in the information you're bringing up.
That's what you talked about, right? It's trust. Trust is the number one, and especially in a startup mode, you don't have many chances to swing, right? You got to make it right first time. That's crazy. So for you, just these bells and whistles talking about AI is not. It's not priority number one. It's just delivering your promises on end to end, identifying problem.
And if AI helps further those, then great, right? But it's solving the problem, that we're bringing, not AI, right? That's
going back to the comment earlier, like not promising absolute, not promising like this, fancy tech that will solve XYZ problem with the magic wand. You just said, it's really down to earth. This is what we're gonna solve. Again, like talking with them. This is the biggest friction point in your operations right now. This is what we can do with the platform today. Okay, this is what we could do in 3-6 months, and really have this confidence and conversation and ongoing progress with them. This is priceless. Better than just promising features or techs. Yeah,
for sure. You talked about CX, UX, customer experience. It's still pretty messy, and you touched on it, right? It's going to be the mom and pops that will be exposed to this flow of charging, of the reality of charging. And right now it's actually messy. You mentioned it a couple of times. What will be the role of Relion? Because right now, I mean, and it's what we love to do, right? UX is our core. It's always if the experience is not right, people will say it's broken, right? It could work, but that's another metric also. You're saying, uptime could be there, but if the experience is too clunky, people won't say, I didn't understand. They're going to say it doesn't work. How do you actually see your role, or maybe just the industry? How will it evolve where right now we have maybe, I would say a handful of apps just to be able to charge in Quebec? I mean, that's not global. A lot of apps are trying to be the focal point. It doesn't always work. It's always, there's an exception here and there. Tell us about your vision on the experience. How will it be better? And maybe if you guys have a role to play in it.
Well, we definitely have a role in providing the right tools for the operators to detect and fix those problems to start with, like making sure that the charger is really up, very available.
If you see it up,
at the advertised power, and that if there was some issues with the payment or cable management or something, we detected it early enough so it could be fixed before the next user comes. So that's our role. It's behind the curtain, but it's really like detecting, preventing as much as possible, and providing the tools to fix them as early as possible, because our offering is not biased toward the user experience, right? We don't manage reservation, payment, and all of those things. But I'll let Jesse speak. But to me, it should be as simple as fueling, just like you put your card reader or your telephone and you fuel and you're done, right?
Yeah, you don't need the fancy stuff.
Yeah, I'd say that, agreed. Relion is basically behind the scenes where drivers don't interact with Relion, right? To them, success would be that, hey, this charging station's working, I had a successful experience, so I'm going to go back to that same site next time, right? Versus, oh, hey, this one's always broken, I'm not going to go back there again. I may go somewhere else, right? So I think for us, that's ultimately the users having a successful charging experience and making sure the operators have all the information and process to be efficient in doing that, right? As for the actual experience and where the industry is going, I think there's like a few different things that are playing that will, I think, help improve it. One is like the standardization of the connectors, right? So right now there's a bunch of different types. You need
the adapter in your trunk.
Adapters based on where you go, and we'll have that connector. So I think all the new vehicles moving to NACS will definitely help, right? That'd be one less friction point for them to deal with. You'll go to a station, you won't have to worry about the connector type. We're also seeing improvement in I think auto charge or plug-in charge happening, meaning that whenever you plug in the vehicle, it'll automatically identify the vehicle and payment will authorize automatically through your pre-existing app. So you won't actually have to pull out your app and plug in and start the charge. That in of itself removes a lot of friction there as well. I can now just plug it in and it'll charge, and I know that I'll be billed for the power I'm used. I think that's another one there. And then there's the I think people are becoming more open to having just like credit card tap at the station stations as well, as opposed to, requiring an app and, sign in registration. I remember going to charge somewhere on a different network, and I was like, okay, I got to sign up, create yet another account for this thing I'm never going to use again, right? Deposit.
Put money on it.
And then it was like, it's so kind. And then the Wi-Fi is bad here. The page is timing out, and it's a pain, right? So like,
it really is.
Yeah.
Just a recent, a recent experience with a big retail that are adding charger. You need to go on their app, and then you see like sales on paper towel and a whole bunch of things, and then 3 level of tabs below, you finally find EV charger, and you need to like
I don't know what you mean.
create an account and a whole bunch of things. And enter your credit card information. It takes minutes before you do the first time. And even when you come back, again, you need to go through all of those tabs before you find EV charging, and then you can start your session. It could be one option, fine, but the good old credit card or Google Wallet, Apple Wallet should work as well.
The thing that I see that's interesting for you guys, and I don't know how you interact with that, but it's user feedback, right? So for me, yes, you're able to monitor what's happening with the hardware. But there's also the component of users being able to say, hey, this was an issue for me. For example, I don't know, like I couldn't access physically the station, or maybe something that is not related to hardware. How do you see that? Because that's part also of a problem, right? Of
a huge one,
of a successful transaction. It might, probably 90% is going to be hardware, even more than that. But what about the other components? How do you get that user feedback through those platforms, and how could it be integrated to your product?
You can give one practical example here. The city of Montreal, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say there's problems with a station, right? Folks will end up, and if people want to report it, you can do it through the app, or you can call their support line as well. And then there's, agents at the other end of that will then, create and confirm, this is a problem, and then go ahead and create a ticket or an incident associated with that charger. And then we're able to, basically get alerted on those and feed those into the pipeline, right? So you can imagine there being, multiple failed charge attempts being reported, or user reporting a cut cable or the like, right? Yeah. Then that, being tagged on in additional to the automated alerts, that are there, right? Yeah. So then you can, for example, cable cut, right? It's something that happens practically, and it's not always possible to detect that remotely, right? That the cable is no longer present. So sometimes you can detect it 2 ways: either seeing that, hey, this station's normally used, it hasn't been used for a while, or you have someone that actually reports it in, right? Following the case there. So if that feeds into that same cycle, then they can validate and then get it repaired.
Because there's a lot of power for the operators. At one point, it's such a strong community. Right now, it's maybe still the early adopters that are or even there's a big community of real fans and power users.
Yeah.
And they're they're going to take the pictures, they're going to give the feedback, they're going to give the tips and tricks and whatever it is of like the garage will lock at this time, like whatever it is. But that's very valuable information that you don't see on the on the gas pump, on the fueling side. So that's a cool aspect for you guys for sure.
And you just mentioned something. You can't count on this on mass adoption. That's why what Jesse meant, like us doing like the extra effort to look at patterns, and this charger hasn't been used statistically a lot recently compared to how often it would be used before. So then we can detect stuff, or at least already bring something on the surface. Maybe there's something, then someone can show up, cable is cut, we need to change it. So this proactivity, that kind of unheard of so far in the market, that we bring also in detection.
Yeah.
And then we could think of CCTV and interpreting all those things. But I mentioned before, moving parts that we could play with. Yes. That's just like something, a blue sky conversation, right?
Yes, I'm sure it's on a post-it somewhere on the whiteboard. But it's probably for later. All right. So where is Relion today? Now it's been started for what?
Almost 2 years now.
2 years.
Yeah.
Where are you guys at?
Deploying, go to market, deploy. Yeah. So we have customers in Canada, US.
Nice.
Like sophisticated operations, New York, California, the City of Montreal project that Jesse just mentioned. So real stuff, a lot of fun, a lot of pressure on the team and deployment. Focus is really, the steel thread is there and starting to have some very interesting feature like that with like functionality that we bring and we keep incorporating, but enough to qualify for sophisticated operations. And this is a very good tipping point that we passed a few months ago. Like big networks that, now they say, okay, we see added value. You were saying like, maybe later. Now we're in the now conversation with some of those big infrastructure. Yeah. Very nice place to be. So deploying is where we're at.
So Jesse, on your end, it's all hands on deck deploying.
I mean, it has been since the beginning. There's no. Lately, definitely, going. We're seeing the pull traction. I mean, at first, I remember building it and not really having much in terms of users there yet,
feedback, right?
And just wait, is build it and they will come, that kind of. But now, everything we put out there, it's there's people on it immediately.
There's a lot of scrutiny on
there's a lot more feedback and asks, and the really challenge is again staying focused on the mission and really the features or the aspects that will really move the platform forward that can touch on the most amount of users, and that's the hard part is being focused and delivering bit by bit, not getting lost in all the noise.
Because that's another milestone where it can become very blurry and distracting. Early conversations with clients, it's one thing. It's like they have their wish list and it's scattered, and you can sort of bring them back and take a few things that are interesting for you. But now going to prod, that's where usually you see not only bugs, issues. Those will be there. Those will be there, but also now it's like, okay, but I need this. Where's that button? Where's that filter? Where's that option to whatever it is, So probably very messy in terms of the input that is coming in to trying to make sure, okay, what do we focus on? What is noise? And what is something for the future roadmap?
100%. And those, those little shortcuts you took early on, right? To buy some time. Now they kind of surface up again. We're like, oh wait, we got to fix that too, right? So it definitely keeps everyone on their toes.
That's a fair point. I've seen those a lot.
It would be pretentious calling this our superpower, but I think one place we're doing good as a team, Jesse and I, is spending the time aligning. Not me, more like toward market. Yeah, we got to build this or that and go crazy about it. No, I mean, I wait to speak with him and can we adjust and prioritize? And I think we've been doing a good job so far. And
for an arranged marriage, you guys, it's fun to see you guys go. It's very impressive what you've done. It's Product Misfire, so I need to bring you the question. Share a story, maybe one for each, but of maybe a learning that you've seen trying to launch a product, something that backfired, misfired, whatever it is. I'm really curious to see. You have a lot of background into tech, into building products. What could you share in terms of wisdom?
I can go for it. Even share an example there from Rely on. Early on, we had an idea that we're gonna have this this nice health score on each charger. So we're gonna come up with a number from 0 to 100 that represents how healthy a charger is, right? And it's gonna be nice, simple. You can sort on that, and you can know which ones need the most attention. Sounds great on paper, right? Then we started implementing it and put it out there, and then once reality hit, and we put it. It sounded great, and once reality hit, and we put it out there, we're like, wait, this doesn't work. No one can actually interpret this. What does 100? What does 80 mean versus 90? What are the different criteria? How do you weigh all these different factors? And I think there was one particular point where there was a charger that was offline, that had been offline for a few days or so, and the health score was 70 or something. And Ben was like, I don't get it. How can it have
it's out, but it's 70.
It's down. It's not working.
It should be zero.
It's 70. I was like, but it was working before. So and then we found that it just didn't work in practice. So then we started just going with what people know and what the industry uses there. So I think there's a certain not all ideas work in practice. It may sound great in paper. Once you put it out there and actually try it, you realize that, hey, wait, this doesn't actually.
If you're in a room with the whiteboards and it's genius, let's rate it.
Great,
and then in practice, it's just it doesn't work. It's what does it mean?
Exactly. What does this mean? You put it in front of a user and then
and it's the simplest question, right? What does it mean? And you're like, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but it sounded great in that brainstorming session earlier.
That's really cool. That's a cool share. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe to add on that, and there's something common. I spent 16 years as a manufacturer of EV charging powertrain, right? EV hybrid powertrain. And when you deploy hardware, you got to be sure it's going to work to some extent, right? Especially when you start deploying at volume, because catching up and repairing is not like software. You cannot deploy and repair after the fact. But you get the real kinks and the real answers after you deploy with some volume. So same thing with software, right? There's a few things that, again, whiteboard, we think like we did the workflow. Yeah, that works. And then we deploy. We can with software a little bit. It doesn't. There's a bunch of loopholes. Assignment don't make any sense. Yeah, they don't get the notification. Yep, something is missing here. So you don't know until you threw it in nature, basically. And I mean, because we haven't, this is one example. We didn't have that many misfire, knocking on wood, with Reliance so far. But every time we thought we had reached a certain level or that was it, for now, no. So it's, you deploy and then you need to plan weeks after to polish the kinks and
manage expectations.
Internally also, we need to
to
budget that time, because it's not like you deploy, we're done. No, we need to fix a few things after.
100%. Guys, thank you so much for passing by. Fun. It was a cool conversation. Learned a lot about what you guys are doing. It's really fun to see you go at it. It's a big problem, ambitious, and you guys are going to make it for sure. Well done.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for being here. All right.